Hola, buenos días, bienvenidos a todos. Bueno, ahora pasamos a una parte que cuatro.
Hello, good morning. We have 4 representatives here from very significant contexts. They're going to talk to us about their corporate social responsibility tasks in the field of tourism, and they're going to tell us why they do so much work so that tourism is accessible for most people. As you know, in Spain, this is a very significant. Tourism represents 11% of our GDP, and of course, we would like to include most companies in this business to add value, but they do it personally because they know that corporate social responsibility is really important, and it's not just about how you look in the picture for society, but it's also about doing something good for society so that we all work at unison for the same purpose. The people whom we have here with us is very significant. Let's start with Ariana Kmok, and they're very important in our corporate social responsibility, Amadeus. She's going to explain it much better than I do, but as you know, Amadeus is like the IT side of most trips. They really stress corporate social responsibility, and they make this available for people with accessibility because they consider that making this run smoothly and seamlessly is very important. As I said, they work in she works in Amadeus, and they really highlight the importance of corporate social responsibility. Also, we have José Manuel Cedes from Vodafone. As you know, everybody has a cell phone, and everybody knows how important it is for people who need it to have this type of devices at their hands. Emilio García Gestapo is also an expert, and he's an expert in the automotive industry, and as you can see, all of them are very relevant. So without further ado, I will start the discussion with them because they're the real protagonists of this session. First, I wanted to ask you, Angelica, how come Amadeus has really added so much importance to corporate social responsibility in this field? Thank you very much.
Bueno, hay dos razones que nos impulsa desde Amadeus.
There are 2 reasons concerning Amadeus. First, the nature of our activity as such, and also the social commitment we have got to use our strong points to improve the conditions of connectivity of groups that belong to our society and that can benefit from those advances we can contribute with. If we go back for 1 minute to the activity that we do carry out, as it has been explained, Amadeus is a provider of technological advanced solutions to the sector of trips worldwide. So when we do an online booking or a booking through a travel agency, or when we do check-ins, or when you buy a trip through an airline, the technology they use behind is Amadeus. They use Amadeus technology to be able to satisfy the needs of the traveler. So our first aim to get that objective, those solutions for them to be relevant, is to understand which are the needs of the travelers. There are travelers of all kinds that travel for work purpose, for leisure, and in that aim, we reach accessibility. For us, we understand accessibility in a very vast way. If you think that almost everyone at some moment in time will have or live with some kind of impairment, what does that mean? I include those who have got disabilities, or because of an accident, or temporary impairments, but there is a bigger group of people that is more and more relevant, which is the senior travelers, people of elderly age, and we will all get there. And we yes, so if you take disability from that wider scope for Amadeus as a company, it is very interesting how to think about which are the trends, the needs today and the coming ones, and develop the solutions that will satisfy the needs so that providers such as airlines, hotels, railways, or selling channels such as travel agencies or online web portals can serve travelers. So accessibility is interesting for us because of the nature of we do. We must understand which are those needs, and we see that it is a need because it's a major group of people. That on the one hand. On the other hand, as a global company that we are, which is present in more than 100 markets, we see needs that Amadeus can cover by using its strengths. So accessibility, yes, we tackle it, but from both sides, as I was saying, but as a way of using what we know how to do, our know-how, that knowledge, that understanding of the selling process of a trip. How to use that and apply it to satisfy the needs of the disabled people, apart from other kinds of travelers. Yes, it's interesting that such a giant company as you tries to be proactive and see which are the needs that people will have in the future. Yeah, excellent. Thank you. Let's talk now with Vodafone. José Manuel Cedes is the SCR in that company. He's the guru of the SCR in Vodafone. How do you see it from Vodafone? So we started with CSR in 2001. We started corporate social responsibility, and we wanted to use and make use of the potential of our technology, our products and services to make or contribute to making more sustainable societies, while at the same time improve the quality of life of people. That's this vision of that strategy. And in that line and responding to that vision, we did set up like 2 major action lines with regards to social corporate responsibility. Everything has to do with acting internally in an ethical and responsible way in our relationship with our customers, our employees, providers, etc., etc. And then a second line, which is key for today's session, which is developing products and services that will be generating sustainable societies.
And there are 2 great sections there. On the one hand side, products and services for sustainable development, which is not the topic of this discussion, but it deals with how these products and services help other sectors diminish their contribution to climate change. And then the other point is how our products and services can help the special needs group by eliminating barriers created by technology, and on the other hand, we also use technologies to reduce other hurdles that already exist. In this task that we've been developing for many years, there's a key, which is the collaboration that we've had in place to develop those products and services, the collaborations with entities of the third sector that represent different special needs groups. These are groups that have established the needs that they had, they identified those needs, they put them on the table, and we are experts in telecommunications, but we are not experts in disability issues, and this is why the joint collaboration has been key. Back in 2004, our company was fully devoted to developing applications to make communication accessible to people with special needs.
Especially we were talking about screen readers, etc., etc. And we did it because back then manufacturers of these devices did not include the accessibility or criteria or applications in those devices. Fortunately speaking, most of the manufacturers today do include a functionality which is accessibility, and that from the standpoint of an operator has allowed us to address other activities to be developed. On the one side, we're launching terminal products with big buttons or big screens, such as Angelica was saying, I don't know, for elderly people, because for them it's much more simple to have a cell phone with big buttons than a tactile or a touch screen. For these kind of products that we're developing. And then we're also developing mobile teleassistance devices for the elderly, so that they don't have to be teleassisted only at home, but that they can go and be assisted outside. This has changed, and what we've wanted is for the platforms with which we communicate to our customers and with which we relate to our customers, for them to be accessible. That is what we wanted. So we had to make our website accessible. We're labeled AA for the public part, but also for the internal or domestic side, for the online store. And everything has to do with the private or in side of with the customer. And our stores, we were pioneers there. In 2010, we were the first company with a commercial network of accessible stores. This project was developed together with the sector, this group of people who helped us to identify the lacks our stores had. We had to change many criteria that very often were imposed by the matrix, and that also allowed us to define the new functionalities that stores had to have. And in this case, a major element was also to train our salespeople in the stores when treating people with special needs. That's another segment or another activity to be highlighted in this process. And I'd like to comment here the activities that our foundation carries out, a foundation specialized to develop solutions both for accessibility but also to eliminate barriers. And in this case, they've got around 40 apps that have been developed accessibly. For example, an app to have audio description of a projection or of an event, such as an opera, or the Medicamento Accesible Plus. It reads through the barcode the prospectus of the drug, and it tells you how many drugstores are nearby to where you are. And I'd like to highlight here the task they do carry out when training and integrating disabled people. They train people in IT to foster their employability. Last year, we've trained more than 3,500 people, and that have entered the labor market, more than 160 people of that group. And then we also foster accessible leisure. We are a Congress dealing with technology and tourism, but from our foundation, we foster this access to leisure, theater or cinema or any kind of leisure activities. So by summarizing, an important message is that technology must help to reduce barriers and to solve other barriers that are existing. And here, the collaboration with the entities of the third sector is critical. Well, if we all take a plane, we use a cell phone, and the train, we also use it. And Emilio Garcia is the innovation products director. I'd like to know how you have included accessibility in your big company. Well, for a long time, we have already been working to include accessibility to our products. Trains, as you know, basically we call it rolling stock, but it's trains. And we thought about introducing accessibility in an organized way. It's true that Talgo train entails already its own accessibilities because there are no stairs inside or steps inside the vehicle in order to access from the platform to the train. But we wanted to tackle the problem of universal accessibility in a much more serious way. So the first thing we did within the technological plan we do carry out every 5 years, we have now 5 lines of innovation that are key, and one of them is innovation and development for Talgo. And one of these lines is accessibility as its title. There's environment, then client projects and then own technological projects related to trains. So the first thing we did is just to set a strategic line inside our technological plan for accessibility, and then we structured from then on all the lines where we could work. Many projects have stemmed from there. One with on the foundation that I will explain afterwards, and the possible projects that we've got in our hands. And when developing the products, we wanted to have a universal accessibility plan ad hoc for each vehicle, for each train that we're going to develop, either high-speed train or other kinds of trains. And this plan of universal accessibility that we do carry out for each vehicles tries to always respect the rights of any passenger so that the mobility is autonomous inside the vehicle. We must think that a train, a high-speed train, tends to have 200 meters in which the traveler is free to move around, or should be free to move around all through the vehicle, and therefore accessing any service or any area inside the train. So we have to make sure, for example, that the doors are wide enough so that people in wheelchairs can cross them, that there are no steps, or so that people with trolleys or canes or crouches or the elderly can move freely. Emergency exits, information signalings, beacons, all that is included in that universal accessibility plan of the train. And the designs of the vehicle must adapt to that accessibility plan. It's true that in the railway sector, there are physical limitations because we cannot just exit a space which is delimited, and that tends to create certain problems. In any case, I always say that in the railway system, we've got the rolling stock, the train, but it's all an interrelated system of different pieces, and accessibility can be worked by the manufacturers of rolling stock, but we must always communicate to the environment. The most direct environment is the train stations. It's worthless if we make sure accessibility exclusive for the train when the person having to that is entering a station does not access on time and with comfort to the train. Well, it's a road, it's a path that we have started that is bringing results, and some projects are already bringing good results. Yes, can you hear me? Can you hear me? Yes, okay. So José Manuel Machado is the president of Ford Spain, and we wanted to ask him, well, because you have been committed, you've carried out many actions of corporate social responsibility, and why? How come you have committed so much to this? Well, to understand what we do in Spain, well, first we have to understand that our company, since its beginning, since its origins, when Henry Ford was a president more than 100 years ago, one of the sentences he used to say is that a business that thinks only about making money is not a good business. So the company has always been very active. It's an American company that has always been very active with regards to corporate social responsibility. And I had the chance in the 90s when I went to Mexico to see a beautiful program in Mexico. We built schools. It was a program that had been working for 30 years, and I saw it close. And for you to have an idea, in Mexico, one of the problems is education. So Ford built schools for kids, and builds schools for kids and high schools. And we built 20 schools, but now we've got more than 200 schools. And every year there are 150,000 people studying in Ford schools. So in some way or another, we have always been very active in Mexico. When I came to Spain in the year 2001, well, building schools, it's meaningless or doesn't have much sense because we've got the state covering many of these needs. But we started to think about how what is it that we could do, respecting the principle of the company of doing something else apart from paying tax, generating employment, which is basic, of course, to any company. But within these activities, we started to work on the 24 Solidarian hours, and through that program, we've awarded 128 projects. Out of them, we have 12 editions. Every year we meet and we do analyze which are the projects that we have to support, and they're very different products in nature. But we were somewhat distracted because we were helping NGOs that were doing humanitarian tasks in Africa, but also we were helping NGOs that in Madrid make the life of children in hospitals to be nicer. So we decided that we had to do something more serious, and as in Mexico we chose the world of schools, we decided here to focus the world of disabilities. So we've got a major partner, which is ONCE. With ONCE, we started working in the year 2000 to have joint companies. We have 2 companies in Valencia, where we've got our factory, Nafamoa with 51 employees, and LMV with more than 200 companies. But the interesting thing about these companies is that 87% of the staff is disabled people. But what's interesting is that these people compete on equal grounds to other people that provide services. And these are shared companies owned by Ford and ONCE. But the good thing about this is that is a success stories. We started with FAMOA, as we called it, 49 people and now 51. But then we created the other company, and these last 2 years we've hired 400 people. So these companies are within the balance sheet of ONCE because ONCE is the leader there. But it has helped us to start and understand and get closer to the world of people who have got impairments or disabilities and started to doing things in a different way. And the last thing we've done is the program we created 4 or 5 years ago, which is for RSE, in which we are, and we have included distribution, more than 100 independent distribution companies that are with us, collaborating with us to carry out projects such as the Adapta, the cars that you see outside. So disabled people can even test an adapted car before buying it. So we are very proud of having chosen this field. We could have chosen any other one, but we decided to enter the territory of disabled people. And that's where we are, just moving on, always hand in hand with ONCE, because they have been our mentor and our guide in this process, because we did not know so much as what we have discovered during these last 15 years. Of course, to reach someone, you must have the information of that someone you want to reach. And in fact, Angelica, you as our CSR responsible, you have been talking about specific services you have launched for this group of people. So the question is, have you seen these services increases, or how do you value this increase of demands of these kinds of services used? Well, the answer, yes, of course, we've seen an increase. And from different sides, directly, we have got organizations, associations that approach us and ask us to work with them to foster and have more accessibility within their process of traveling before the traveler leaves home, during the travel, and after the trip. So, I mean, I want to go to a certain city. What are the possibilities I have? What price? What day? Until you reach to the counter where you do the check-in. When you finish your travel, during all that process, we see that, for example, we've reached this year an agreement with ONCE Foundation and with Ilunion to research more there and join our forces from all they know about accessibility accessibility, our technological capacity, and our positioning in the world of traveling, and join our forces to even take more steps. That was directly, but indirectly, we are starting to see regulations passed on accessibility. But for a simple reason, it is right of people in order to have access to information. It's essential that is information related to the trip. The person is going, what are the services? How are going to be satisfied their needs for disabled and non-disabled people? But as for regulation, one I can tell you is I think the deadline to abide by that regulation is December 2015. It's from the U.S. Transport Department, which is demanding the companies selling traveling services in the United States for Americans living or people entering into the United States. These companies must have user interfaces, websites, mobile devices, kiosks in airports that will be accessible. And that requirement is not directly coming to Amadeus because we are the technology behind these providers. But Amadeus has taken that challenge, and instead of just providing technology that will allow these companies to customize the user interface, what the user sees in the website, we have taken the decision to also carry out that full development, and we have just finished the online e-retail search engine for bookings, which is used by more than 100 airlines worldwide, big and small airlines. So the impact of the contribution of Amadeus can be big, but there's another challenge there because we do develop the platform as such, the online bookings engine that will be used by airlines. They will customize it according to the business strategies so that what the final client sees is what they want to see. So we have to work with them. We have to develop the technology, but also work with those airlines, helping them, contributing with knowledge. We do workshops with them so they understand how to use all that technology that we have programmed, that platform we have created, so that that functionality is activated for the end user. So it's a collaboration work. And the third interesting source is, of course, from institutions, even the European Commission with the rights of passengers, of reduced mobility. We're starting to see how they start to move, but all this together makes us even think that even not all the countries are requiring it, the regulations are there, and there's countries that are starting to move. So a company such as Amadeus, it is very interesting for us to start to develop this necessary technology so that it is adopted by providers and the sales channel, so that when that time comes, we're all ready. Yes, if you're in the skeleton, I mean, you have to change what's inside. The skeleton has to change before the muscles change. Yes, and I heard before in some other sessions very interesting things about applications, services for tourism that allow these disabled people to experience things. But there are things we ask. You've got service at destination, but when I buy the ticket, how do I know that those services do exist? How do I know that the airport where I'm landing has got accessible services, or the train that I'm taking has got accessible services? That information exists with the providers, with the companies that manage those infrastructures, but during the purchasing process, and I know what I'm talking about because Amadeus is the biggest distributor of travel services, and if that information is included there, then we could say that the disabled traveler will start on the same conditions because he knows they're going to purchase a ticket. I'm going to that destination. That's the cost. That's the timetable. And that's where when I get there, these are the services I'm going to find. And if I want to get to Barajas Airport and I want to catch a train to go to Seville or to Valencia, I don't know, I see all that information. So gathering that information is interesting. So these are the things we see that make us think, but we cannot do it on our own. We need to collaborate with technology providers, companies providing services, the managers of the infrastructures, so that we can also have all that in a single place so that when the traveler starts making the booking, because today, even disabled people have got their income, their jobs, they travel, they want to continue traveling when they get older, and they want to do this autonomously without having to go to a travel agency to get that information. If I go online, I'd like to be able to see all these, but in the same way as any other traveler will do when booking a trip, and they get all the essential information about the travel. Yes, and to know what's going to be finding, if there's a barrier, maybe you must be able to overcome it or not, but you must know that it exists, and that's where an opportunity lies and a lot of work to be done. Teamwork with a lot of players. Yes, José Manuel, a question about Vodafone. We've had a delay, so the president of Ford will have to leave, and I just wanted to ask you two things very quickly. What makes you feel the most proud of? Because we've had a delay, since we do apologize. Well, 5 minutes, I have to leave. That's why I was saying I had to leave at 1:45. We are very proud of the star programs that we've got, such as Ford Adapta, because we created this entity, which is for RSE, in which our concessionaires intervene, and we're getting further than what we got before, because they are committed that for 2016, all the facilities will be accessible and will have staff prepared, already have to orient people when they want to see or buy a vehicle, maintenance, etc. So we're quite happy about this program because we've lived the Ford environment. We've gone further in that world of concessionaries. We've got 10,000 people, and all this is put at the service of disabled people. And this continues to evolve when each car is a product that solves the needs of people to travel around or to move goods. And this is changing a lot. Now we say that we don't do cars, but we are the solution to the problems of people, because we don't know how we're going to end. We are now working on the smart mobility or the intelligent mobility, and we're testing projects everywhere to see how people in one way or another will use cars in the future, because it's going to change a lot from car sharing and everything that's taking place. So new worlds are appearing that we didn't even think of. When we talk about, we'll all take for granted that for the end of this decade, automated cars, driverless cars will be a fact, and vehicles, if today facilitate accessibility, well, tomorrow even more so. And we're embarked on that. I remember a few years ago when we made our cars to help you to park, to brake if there's an obstacle in the city, or changing lanes. All those things that 4 or 5 years ago seemed to be like avant-garde or science fiction, now it's a standard in cars. So we're seeing how vehicles are evolving a lot, and they're occupying a new space. And even these products are becoming a tool to solve the problems of people. For us, having entered, as we did a few years ago, to get to know deeper the problems of people, getting closer to the group of disabled people, has helped us to be pioneers in everything related to automated driving. So I do believe that there's a lot of room to improve and to develop. And as an employee of the company, I'm very proud of having entered this field, having done so with an institution such as ONCE, because we're learning and moving forward, because everything is moving, and being associated and going with the hands of people who know about it, it's excellent. Okay, and I do apologize, but I do have to leave. But I apologize, I won't be able to hear your answers, but thank you anyways.
Entonces, para que se note menos, José Manuel.
Thank you very much, José Manuel. And Vodafone. From the standpoint of company profitability, how did this impact you? Investing in new tools and new devices, it does have a positive impact on your company's results, doesn't it? When a company decides to implement a CSR strategy, there are two ways to get to CSR, and then there's many options to include the different spheres in the scope of accessibility. One way to get there is to do it in a reactive manner, because the competitors are doing it, because you're because you're outside of the game for whatever reason. But I think the best way to get there is in a proactive manner, which is believing that you must do these things because they're good for society. So when we started working on these projects to develop products and services for people with disabilities, and I'm talking about the year 2004, we didn't put together a business case. We just developed them in collaborations with ONCE Foundation and other organizations. And not too long down the road, since we were part of a multinational, the different OBs of the groups contacted us to ask us how we had put together the business case for this to have such a good result. And we said, well, we didn't put together a business case, we just believed in it, and we considered that this was something that we had to do. Having said that, we are fully aware of the fact that after having worked for 10 years on this field and having it as part of our strategy, we have come up with a series of proceeds or profitabilities, but they're twofold. On the one hand side, using tools that exist in the market, we have already been able to analyze the shared value generated both for society as well as for the company. I know that José Manuel Machado just left precisely because he had to go to a meeting in our headquarters, and there they talk about the shared value and how to measure shared value. And this is an analysis that we've done for the products, and we didn't do it initially, but now we can see that it yields profitability for the company, apart from, of course, the social benefit that represents for the groups that this type of solutions are created for. And then another very important element is reputation. Reputation is an intangible asset. Some people are already being capable of monetizing it, but that profitability that we can measure in the shape of reputation allows us to establish very good relationships with with the sector third entities, and for instance, ONCE Foundation. And at the same time, we're also capable of establishing very good relationships with the administrations, with public administrations, because indeed, being a company or being perceived as a company that is concerned with social challenges that society is facing, that really helps the commercial processes that happen subsequently. And there's also a very important element, which is innovation. I think it was mentioned by Andres in the beginning. Having that relationship with Foundation ONCE has enabled us to create products and services that we hadn't come up with on our own. So they put on the table a certain need, and on that basis, we developed that innovation from our field. I think it was Ernst & Young, when we were talking about CSR and companies, and there were representatives from Repsol included, they were saying that now companies realize that CSR is no longer about looking good in the picture and selling your company's image. This does have an impact on your sales, and many people, when they go buy clothes, for instance, they do bear in mind where you do your investments. And it's perhaps not so evident, but there are many investment funds that have CSR policies and that really foster society, and people make their choices. And if you have to decide between one that's socially responsible and one that isn't, you choose the one that is, and that helps also the companies. And now I wanted to ask Emilio about a project that they undertook, so that you can explain it and tell us whether this has really paved the way forward for others. In the first question that you asked, we already mentioned that when talking about trains and accessibility, well, we had studied how big the doors had to be, whether we had to build steps and so on. So we really owned that accessibility study. A few years ago, we signed an agreement with UNSA Foundation, and at that point, I started to really get acquainted with the needs that people with limited mobility have. And there some issues did arise. There were questions that had to be answered. And from there, we created a project to improve the accessibility for passengers in the trains. We live in an information society, in a society that revolves around technology, and the needs of those passengers that have a limited mobility had to be covered by introducing technologies. In the project team that was working with ONCE, called TechnoSite, we came up with a project. We called it the train in your mobile phone. And we realized that train manufacturers are perhaps too blinded by their own projects, and we forget about the needs. And we need to respond to needs. We need to make sure that needs are covered in any situation. So we finished this project called the train in your mobile phone, and we received an award for it. And for those of you who are not acquainted with it, I'd say that it's an application that you download to your smartphone, and when you walk into the Talgo train, you start receiving a lot of information about what you can find in the vehicle. For instance, whether the toilet's busy, where the cafeteria is, when the train is to stop, how long you have still to your destination. These things might seem obvious for some parts of society, but for some other parts of society, it's not so obvious. So I think we are treading this way forward. We all have the right to be autonomous. We all need to be autonomous to move in our trains, and this is the mindset that we all need to adopt. There are many other things we could work on. There are technological experts here that could work on this, and our next challenge is for a person in one of our trains to walk in and be guided, so that they can go to the toilet and they can go anywhere they want. So we would want smartphones to be able to guide them. And this is complex because dimensions in a train are always limited. We cannot make 8-meter wide wagons. So for guiding people, we need to position the person in the vehicle. And right now, positioning a person in such a restricted place entails an issue with measurement errors. We've done some testing and we found some curious cases in which the person was geolocated outside of the train, and that, of course, is a problem. In terms of safety, for instance, imagine that there's an emergency in the train and there's someone who's locked up in a toilet and that person cannot be localized because we are being subject to errors. Well, there's a series of methods that we implement together with technologies and that could facilitate the way forward so that we can offer a trip that is as comfortable as possible and so that people can do the trip as autonomously as possible. There lies the challenge. We need to work as much as possible in this. We should, in a way, intoxicate people with this kind of message so that they believe in it and so that at the end of the day, we are not just talking about a universal accessibility, so that we are not just talking about accessibility for people with limited mobility, but rather so that we are talking about accessibility. And when we mention this word, that will represent that everybody can move autonomously in our vehicles. Service quality grows exponentially when you do this. You provide information in this manner and the experience improves. It is not just good for a group, it's good for everybody, I'd say. Yes, this application has received feedback in one of our tests. We've done some checks with users, and the feedback says that it facilitates accessibility for everybody. It is great for everybody to know where things are, what the menu is, what's the price for it, when the attendant is coming to help you out. It's an accessibility service for everybody, for all. Angelica, when you were talking about receiving all the information when you make an online booking, do you also think this is a trend that's going to be more and more widespread? I don't see why not. Progressively, it'll be widespread. There are some challenges, but again, why not? Look at the group that we have in front of us. We are all more and more interconnected every day. We have more resources, we are eager to travel, and some people cannot do it, so they need to use methods that are more virtual. But people want to travel. For instance, the cruise industry is proof of it. And as our population ages, we will see this need more and more often. This is something that's becoming evident bit by bit. And it's not just something for people of an advanced age. It's also something that applies to people with permanent disabilities or acquired disabilities. We can hear their voices more and more in this world. So one way or another, even if we have to do it through regulations, we will have to hear those voices. And also the market is demanding it. Travelers are demanding the services. There are studies that examine traveler behavior, traveler needs, what the trends are. And we do global studies. And those are the outcomes that they yield. People are more and more interconnected. They want to respond to their needs. And sometimes they travel because of business, but sometimes they travel because they want to. And when they travel, they require certain services to be able to carry out the trip. And if it's a leisure trip, it's like a reward. They just want to go out and they want to enjoy it. And also, it is a right. We need to access essential information. We were also talking about the different factors that you need to continue pushing for. It's like riding a bicycle. Either you pedal on or you will fall. So in order to move, you need to continue pedaling. So do you think that companies are really seeing the benefit of including this, apart from not falling off your bike? Of course, there's a profit to be made out of it. Well, I think it's a matter of being smart about it. Just before we were talking about profitability, and you might guess in your head that it's going to be profitable, and that's a matter of belief too. But there's also a very important issue, which is figures. Disabled people amount to 9% of the Spanish population, so even if you were just to look at it from the economic standpoint exclusively, and that's not something that we should do, but if you were to look at it from that standpoint and you decide to not work on this field, you will be losing a high amount of potential customers. So if you're smart about it, you would conclude that it's absolutely necessary to include this population, even if you don't believe it on it. That's a first point to make. It's a very important market from that standpoint. But there's also a very interesting element for companies, which is the capacity to create pride among your employees. Make employees feel that they belong. We do a people survey. It's like a Klima survey. And among the questions included in that survey, a few of them have to do with whether you consider that the company is socially responsible and concerned with the social challenges of the country where it is located. And we can proudly say that we cannot really improve much more, because 97% of people who complete the survey say yes. So the response ratio to that Klima survey is 99.7%. That is to say, we had almost the whole company vote and complete the survey, so it's quite motivating for us to know that employees take pride of seeing that you recognize in that field. And additionally, it helps position our operator, Vodafone Spain, in the Vodafone Group as a leader company within the group in this field. And that's great, because sometimes we consider that everything that comes from abroad is more advanced, but I can proudly say that within the Vodafone Group, Vodafone Spain is a representative in this field. We asked store designers in Newbury, in our headquarters, to change some elements in the furniture because they weren't accessible, and they had to change the design. So there's a series of advantages that finally help you being considered a very socially responsible company. Thank you very much, all three of you, and also to the speaker who had to leave. And I think something has been made clear. Companies don't do this just to sell. And let me pick up on the example of the bicycle. These people know that they need to pedal on so that they don't fall off the bike. So we need them to do it, and they are willing to do it. And of course, they also know that this is something that will help them continue to grow. So thank you very much. I hope you really enjoyed the panel.